Our guest today is Meinl Cymbals artist Aaron Stechauner. Aaron is a born and bred California kid whose maturity and professionalism go way beyond his young age. Ever since Aaron's been a Meinl Cymbals artist, he's always been incredibly easy to work with. He's gracious, and he's generally an all-around good dude. All of that probably has a lot to do with why he has been, in addition to his own projects, an in-demand drummer for hire. His band Interloper is his main squeeze, but he's worked with many other bands, like Rings of Saturn, The Faceless, Born of Osiris, Abiotic, and others. Metal drumming is his professional forte, and Aaron totally brings the goods when it comes to laying down chops. Metal chops specifically. He may not want to be known just for blast beats, but his blasting is absolutely a thing to behold. Crazy impressive. I spoke with Aaron recently while he was staying in place at home in Cali during this time of COVID. And as always, he was fun to talk to, and I thoroughly enjoyed getting to pick his brain. On to the podcast. I'd like to welcome everybody into the Meinl Radio Podcast. Today we've got longtime Meinl Cymbals artist and 100% rad California dude, Aaron Stechauner, here with us. Aaron, thanks so much for being on the show, dude.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for having me. It is an honor for sure.
Well, so we were talking about Twitter right before we started this conversation, and I was looking through your feed earlier today, and it made me laugh because of just how blunt you are, which we were also just talking about. But I quickly got the feeling, reading your feed, that you don't like being typecasted as one type of drummer only. Is that accurate?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely don't like to be typecast as one type of drummer. The style that I play primarily now is not necessarily the style that I started off playing drums. I got into playing metal, and especially playing speed metal and blast beats, several years into my playing career. And I feel that, at least in a lot of my experience in my earlier years of touring, a lot of the fan bases of the styles that I was touring on would like to pigeonhole styles and musicians, and I think a lot of that is because a lot of, at least like those younger fans, and I had this sense too when I was younger, have a slight kind of elitist mentality, I guess, and I would get a lot of questions like, oh, how come you like this style of music, or why do you like that style of music? You play in a metal band, that should be what you like. And like I said, a big reason a lot of these people would ask these kind of questions, I think, is because that's kind of the only style that they liked, which nothing wrong with that. But yeah, so I've always been, I would like to say, a well-rounded drummer from when I started playing drums, and that is largely in part to do because of my parents, and I am really fortunate to have people who influence me in such a way like that. But anyway, I digress. Yeah, I have always strived to let people know that I'm into playing other things, and I've been putting up different styles of videos and covers on my YouTube channels and socials throughout the years, not just, speed metal stuff. And I've done a lot in the way of trying to take those other influences and put that into the metal music that I make and the drums that I write and the way that I play. And a lot of people have seemed to notice that influence too. So I think that after a few years, it's kind of circled back around, and it's come to be a really good thing for me.
So would you say that you're able to play other genres of music convincingly?
I would say so, yeah. There are some, I guess, more niche things that I don't think I would feel comfortable on a professional level. For example, like a lot of the fusion cats, or those guys that play that Dilla-feel type grooves and play those really like in the pocket, interesting hip hop genres. I mean, I would definitely have to spend a lot more time doing that. But as far as genres outside of metal and outside of hard rock, I feel confident that I'd be able to hop on a tour and play with other people, know how to not overplay. I mean, I played almost exclusively jazz for, I want to say, like 6 or so years throughout like high school and some middle school and college. So I definitely have experience playing outside of the metal world.
So which types of genres actually pay your bills?
That would definitely be metal and rock for sure. Like, For the first few years of me touring, it was a lot of like the death metal / deathcore, more extreme metal stuff. Nowadays, it's been veering more into like the progressive metal, less hectic, fast, crazy, blazing metal stuff. I still do that sometimes, but I'm going to be honest, I've never really felt like I've been the death metal drummer, the speed guy, which a lot of people think is funny because I play really fast stuff, but I think that there are a lot of cats out there like John Longstreth and Ken Bedini, Jesse Beeler, who just outplay me in so many ways in the speed category. I feel like where I shine is a lot more of a progressive element. So that's been lately, as of like the last couple years, where I guess my career and, like you said, what pays the bills has veered into. And I see that a lot in the lessons I've been teaching too. I get a lot more people now that aren't just asking to learn how to play fast and to do double strokes on the kick drum. I still get that all the time, but a lot of people are asking me a bit more involved of questions, which makes for really enjoyable lessons, to be honest, because I'm talking about something that I'm really, really interested in now.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Thinking about something you said a couple of minutes ago, I'm kind of trying to unpack it in my brain. You were talking about how fans of death metal, those guys are really into keeping you into that particular like spot in their brain. Like they want to categorize you there. They don't want you straying from that. And I had to wonder why that is with those fans. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and believe that there's at least enough of them that listen to something besides death metal. Maybe not. Maybe that's too generous. Even if there aren't, I think what I am guessing is that, man, I think a lot of those guys, like, they wear those shirts like a suit of armor,
Yeah.
It's kind of like that thing that gives them a community and it gives them a sense of just feeling good. And maybe they don't want to think about the musicians that help create that for them straying outside of that territory. Maybe it's kind of like, no, man, you're mine, a real possessive thing because you've helped make their lives better. I don't know. Maybe that's thinking it, through too much.
Right. It could definitely have something to do with that. There for sure is a huge sense of community within those genres. And in my experience, especially those extreme metal like deathcore, metalcore, hardcore kind of communities, which I don't see at all as a negative thing. I think it's great. And there is such a warm sense of community within these styles. I mean, playing shows across, mostly America. I've definitely toured the US the most, the US and Canada. And I mean, I would come back to the same cities and the same clubs, and people that I've met there they all know each other and they've all been friends, and they're all hanging out in the pit or hanging out at the bar. They're all, wearing metal shirts of the bands that are playing that night, and they're all so into what's happening. They're all so happy. It's a really cool thing, and I'm sure that exists in almost all, if not, most music communities, metal or not. As far as the whole possessiveness thing, that could definitely be a component. I'm not sure. I know that for me, when I try to think about when I was younger and I had a sort of elitist attitude towards music and with metal music, I feel like I didn't want to appreciate anything that wasn't technical or that didn't take a crazy amount of almost athletic skill. And I looked down on a lot of the music, and that's a lot of what I'll see. For example, like in comments, if I put up a YouTube video of me playing songs that is outside of the genre that people have known me to play in the past, a lot of people will say, this is beneath you, you've gone backwards, what are you doing, why are you playing this, like you're so much better than this music. Which is interesting to me because I find now that I've got the athleticism, I guess, down, and the muscle memory and ability to play the fast stuff already, because to me, really, all it takes to play that kind of stuff is time, right? Just practice put into it. Not a whole lot of like feeling and soul and like you finding your own voice. To me, and like in my experience, a lot of it is just practice to the metronome and just get your muscles used to playing that fast. So anyway, now that I've gotten that down for so many years, I find so many other things that take much less physical energy to put into the kit, much harder to play. And I'll put up videos online that are actually very difficult for me to do, or were very difficult for me to do. And people look at it, and if I'm not playing 2,000 notes in a measure, they assume that it's beneath my capabilities.
Dude, that's totally interesting. That's a really good point you made, and I would completely agree. But I guess that's just something that time and experience can only, it takes time and experience to really show people that that lesson to be true. While we're talking about funny tweets, I have another tweet you put out there
okay.
that caught my attention.
Good Lord.
Yeah, no, man. A couple of them really made me laugh. Not at you, but with you. So one of them, you said that Gent ruined deathcore. Explain.
That actually was a retweet from my buddy Austin Archie. I don't really think that I thought twice about that tweet, and I don't know exactly what he meant by it. It was probably one of those tweets that you think, I'm going to say this, and it's sort of inflammatory, and that's going to sound really funny, and it's a little vague, and I mean, you asking me this question, I feel like means that it's kind of vague. Yeah, I didn't really mean anything about it at all, and I don't know exactly what Austin meant about it. It was probably, if I had to guess, it could be that the whole extended range, like very low tuned sound, that Gent makes, I feel like, in my opinion at least, and obviously I'm not speaking for Austin, in my opinion, I really liked a lot of the early roots of what Gent music was doing, and I feel that it got bastardized by a lot of people taking one spice that was a component of Gent music, and they made that spice the meat and potatoes of the whole genre. And so if I would think about how that affects deathcore, and I was never really a big deathcore person, like I didn't grow up listening to like hardcore or metalcore or deathcore. I actually was like kind of a prog snob. So I don't really have ties to those like early deathcore bands. So I honestly wouldn't even really be able to tell you like the history of how the sound evolved, even though I played in deathcore bands for years. But anyway, I digress. The point is that I think taking that sort of generic low tune like bounce 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 sound and taking it into deathcore music and kind of stripping away what made that style what it is, and taking away really good riff writing and really like strong, heavy breakdowns. That's what I'm assuming he meant, and that's what I would think to mean by Gent ruined deathcore. I think that a lot of people nowadays especially write a breakdown or write a part in music, that they think is heavy because they're going to make the tone really nasty, and they're going to leave a lot of space, and they're going to add 808s. But realistically, I think that's kind of like a cheat code to try and make something heavy, I guess. I feel, and I've talked with a lot of friends of mine about this concept, and let me know if you kind of know what I'm talking about. I feel that there is a difference between writing something heavy like that, like just a breakdown with a bunch of chugs and a bunch of space that make people want to crowd kill in the pit, and music that is musically heavy, like embedded within the riff and within the sound of just the music itself, is heavy and thick and dense. And the best band, I think, to describe a band that is musically heavy would be Gojira. They don't have to write a breakdown with a crash cymbal on, playing half notes or playing whole notes. Like their riffs themselves and the notes that they're putting together and the way that they're playing is just so heavy and gets so under your skin. Anyway, back to the whole Gent ruined deathcore thing.
Hang on.
Yeah.
To your point.
Yeah, sure.
To that point, I know exactly what you're talking about. stepping outside of even metal, me growing up a metalhead, it was weird because one day, this was probably the early 2000s, and I was at one of the first, there's this festival just south of Nashville called Bonnaroo, and it's huge. It's like 80,000 people, maybe more, that show up for this 3-day festival, and they have all kinds of bands. It's a weird mishmash. I mean, you'll have Lionel Richie headlining one night, and you'll have Mastodon playing 3 bands before him. You'll have Willie Nelson and Metallica on the same bill, or Clutch, and so it's a super cool festival, but I'm down there for one of these early festivals. I was actually working at it. I brought a bunch of backline down. I was working for SIR at the time. And so I'm on the side of the stage, the main stage, watching one of the acts, and it was Neil Young. And he had his band, his electric band, Crazy Horse, with him. And when these guys first came out years ago, these dudes were, I mean, it was real dirty, raw, heavy stuff. Now, no way would it be called metal. Hell no. But it was the first time it really dawned on me that heavy had nothing to do with distortion, for starters. Heavy had to do with, like you said, the riff. And, I mean, yeah, these guys had distortion. Was it metal? No way, not at all. But it was real, like, kind of metallic, clanging sounding. And, but every riff was just, like, designed to crush your bones, basically. And they didn't have to tilt their head to the side like a new metal kid. They didn't have to they didn't have to pretend at being bad. You know what I mean? They were like, and I always say new metal because back around this time, some of that stuff was still crawling around. It was dying out, thankfully, but like, I just thought, man, there's all these guys that try and like act real mean and evil, and like here's some of the heaviest shit I've ever heard, and it's a bunch of old farts up here that are just, they know how to write a heavy riff. So yeah, that was the first time I pretty much got an inkling about what you were saying. And then if you apply that to metal, I mean, yeah, dude, you've got bands that like just down tune so hard and have the heaviest stuff going, but you really would have a hard time beating like the heaviness of, I mean, even something from earlier on, like, I mean, Metallica's Disposable Heroes.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Like, the thing that should not be, that riff is just too much, man. And it's so simple.
Right, exactly. And that's, I mean, and heavy is attitude. Heavy is not all the stuff that, what you're talking about is heavy comes from the attitude and the riff itself. It doesn't come from all the like bling that you put onto the riff.
Exactly. And I think that, and in no way do I also think that this is a new concept, but people a lot of times go backwards in the creative process of music, and that can be good because people will eventually find their way into really good songwriting and really good creation. I think that sometimes, though, people will start backward and they'll be focused on the wrong things, and then all of a sudden, you know, their band gets picked up or somebody starts listening to them, and then they start circulating into the scene. And obviously with the internet and the way that everything is accessible now, it's a lot easier to find things and find somebody's music before they've really found themselves. And, you know, a lot of people will start off on that foot and then eventually find themselves, and by album 2 or 3 have something really, really magical. Sometimes people don't, though. You know, sometimes people, they hit that big break in the beginning and then decide to keep doing what made them hit that big break in the first place, and don't really ever venture off into finding their own sound or finding what really makes music timeless.
Yeah, dude, I know exactly what you mean. You know, something else I was wondering, kind of a random thought, has nothing to do with this, but I would say, I mean, you work, Interloper is your band, but if I had to go out on a limb, I would say that 2 bands that you're really well known for working with in the past have been, are the Faceless and Rings of Saturn. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So my question, I mean, both of these are pretty technically demanding gigs. Which one of those bands is harder for you to pull off, drumming-wise, when you're on tour with them?
I would definitely say the Faceless. The reason being, with Rings, there was a lot of space to sort of chill out and take a back seat. Obviously, there were really fast parts. I was also writing a lot of parts and playing a lot of parts in that music that use, Dirk. Obviously, he's a Meinl artist, right?
Dirk Verburen?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
So, do you know what the Dirk Blast is?
I've heard of it. Explain that blast.
The Dirk Blast, it's a lot of people call it a switch blast too. So essentially, say if you're in 4/4, instead of playing eighth notes on the snare on one hand and then quarter notes on the hi-hat on one hand, and essentially exhausting the one hand that's blasting eights on the snare, you switch up the pattern and you play 4 notes on the snare with one hand at a time, and your hand your hands switch off playing quarters, actually playing a lot of times half notes on the hats instead, and it's a really efficient energy saver, basically. So instead of just using one hand to just pump out eighth notes consistently, your hands get a break. Anyway, I wrote a lot of music using that technique, either in 4/4 or in 3/4, because there's 2 different variations that you can do that Dirk Blast on. But anyway, so a lot of the things that I wrote in Rings had that kind of stuff, and I wasn't really doing like the Euro blast or alternating blast, whatever anybody wants to call it, where you're playing like a split 16th roll on your hands between like the ride and the snare, or the hats and the snare. So I wasn't exhausting myself too much. And also, Rings' music, most of it is all in 4/4 time, and if there was anything in odd time, it usually was with a quarter subdivision, not an eighth subdivision. So Faceless is definitely more of a death metal band, and a progressive death metal band, whereas Rings is more on that deathcore side. And so the Faceless has a lot more of those techie, again, split like a 16th between your hands on 2 different drums type things, blast beats going on. Also, like I said, very progressive, very techie. So there are a lot of odd times and a lot of really funky rhythms and things going on in that music. So not only is my body getting an intense workout, but my brain is getting an intense workout too. And I've had more times on stage with the Faceless than pretty much any other band, where I have to focus on what I'm playing and think about what's happening rather than taking a back seat, because if I don't, then I can mess up a part, and you get 1/8 note wrong and you got to find your way back to the click. I think maybe the only other band where I've had to think more was when I was filling in for Cameron in Born of Osiris, but I think that reason is because I had to learn that set in such a short amount of time, and there's so many rhythms going on that I was forced to close my eyes and just focus on what was happening.
Yeah, dude, so I gotta ask, man, on stage with the Faceless, did you ever train wreck it?
I would never say train wreck, derail. There have been times where I have gotten off the click, like I skipped ahead to, like, say if there are 2 repeating sections in a song, but like the latter half is different in both of those sections. Sometimes I've skipped ahead and gone to what is supposed to happen later on in the song. A couple times I've skipped a couple eighth notes, and I've had to get back on the click, but it's never been crazy bad. There was one time that happened recently. This was actually like a NAMM kickoff show this year, back in January. I was playing for the Faceless and for Lee McKinney, his solo project, and I'm going to excuse myself by saying that I had the flu. I was sicker than I have been in, honestly, years. I may have even had COVID at that time. Sort of kidding, but honestly not sure. Like, it was a really gnarly sickness. Anyway, so yeah, I was playing through a Faceless song, and this one passage, I think I just skipped maybe like an eighth note or maybe 3/8 notes in the section. And we've had times where we've been off before, but we've gotten back on really quick. This one took much longer than I wanted it to take to get back on, but I've never had to stop a song while playing on stage, so that's nice.
Have you ever seen a guy? Have you ever seen another, like a drummer with another band you were on tour with, that train wrecked it so bad that they had to stop the song?
Dude, actually, I don't think so. I've heard so many stories from people on tour saying, dude, this guy I just watched, you should have seen what happened. Or, I'll be up in the green room and they say, dude, you missed this band have this crazy fail on stage. But I don't feel like I've witnessed many horror stories before.
God, that's the kind of stuff where when you see it happen, you just literally, it makes your skin crawl so much. You have to walk out of the room because you can't watch. You feel so bad for them. I've seen it go down a couple of times and it's just awful.
Yeah, I'm very, very fortunate enough to not have had to deal with that. Again, I've gotten off. There have been sections, like there was this one time, one of the shows that I did with Born, and I stopped because I thought that I was at a section where I was supposed to rest and everybody was playing. But I got back on right away and I did like a fill into the groove section, so it kind of made it seem like intentional, sort of sounded like it was an emphasis. That's a big thing for sure. And actually, that's a big thing that I like to talk about during lessons a lot, and when people ask me for advice, too, not to segue too hard, but I really like to stress importance on being able to play through songs and being able to pull off mistakes, because I don't think I'm ever going to get to a point in my life where I never make mistakes, of course. So I don't think anybody does. So I like to just make it so that you know how to improvise through something and you know how to land something even if it wasn't supposed to happen. And I think that really helps me de-stress and not really psych myself out before I go on stage, knowing that whatever mistake happens, like I've gotten through a lot of bad ones.
Yeah, no, I totally get that. Speaking of the two bands that we were just talking about, both of them have there's like a clear leader in each band, and they've got their distinct personalities and ways of doing business. What's your advice to drummers out there on dealing with a band leader where they're clearly in charge? It's their musical vision. It's their way of doing things on the road. What would be like if you had sort of like a generalized piece of advice? What would that be?
I gotcha. Well, as far as rings goes, it was definitely a bit more like what you're saying. It was a pretty extreme situation. With the Faceless, Meinl is honestly really, really chill. He's not a dictator kind of leader. He's a very lax, go with the flow, very friendly type dude. But in general, as far as dealing with that kind of stuff on the road, man, I mean, this brings me to something that I talk about reasonably often, mostly with friends. Excuse me. And it's that you kind of have to look at it as a job, as a desk job, just in the sense that you're going to have a boss for a long time, and it's going to be years and years before you get quote-unquote promotions and climb up the ladder and have your own office and have your own space, and you call the shots and you have people that you're telling what to do, and that's how I've looked at it from the get-go, really. I have some friends that I was playing in bands with, or maybe like fellow drummers that I was friends with when I was a young kid, and there were opportunities that they had that they turned down, that were similar to opportunities that I had that I didn't turn down, and they were opportunities that were to play in bands that maybe like weren't their style of music, The best example I can give for me myself is when I was 18, I got asked to join a band in Miami called Abiotic. I moved across the country. I joined them. It wasn't really like my style of music. It wasn't really my thing. It was a deathcore band, and like I said, I liked progressive metal. I liked more like technical death metal stuff like the Faceless when I was young. But I took it because I was like, this is what I have to do. This is the step I have to take to get my name out there, and I have to build myself as an artist and as a brand along the way. And so I tell a lot of people now, I've been touring realistically not that long. Like, I'm still a pretty like fresh meat and young person, but I've been touring for like 7 years, and only now am I starting to be able to carry out my own band and like my musical vision in the form of a band. All this time I've been playing for other people. I've been working for a boss, so to speak, not only to get a paycheck, but to, again, build myself up as an artist. And even now, I haven't made that much money from Interloper. I wouldn't say that like I've made my return from it at all. I think that's going to start happening soon, because we just finalized a record deal, and we're going to be putting out our first record really soon and start touring on that whenever tour happens again. But anyway, yeah, so it's taken a long time to do quote unquote what I want, and to be my own boss, and to be able to call the shots and have exactly what I want to do on the drums and exactly what I want to do musically as my career. So yeah, sometimes you just gotta bite the bullet, and you gotta be a very malleable person, and you gotta be a very chill person. Like you have to be a good hang, and you have to be flexible, because there's a line out the door of people who want to do this stuff. So if you get an opportunity and it's not 100% what you wanted to do from the very beginning, I think that you should still pursue it, because who knows what it can turn into.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Experience is a great teacher. And maybe it's kind of the same situation. You said last year you had filled in for Cameron with Born of Osiris. Is it pretty much sort of the same advice you'd give if anybody was just going to fill in on a one-off tour, a one-off album, something like that, with a band who has an established drummer, but he's just got to take a break for whatever reason? Anything you do differently in that scenario? Is there like another set of rules you follow for that?
You just mean as in like I am not taking their position, I'm just fulfilling the position for a short period of time?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as far as nothing different playing wise or on stage, but I would say, okay, for example, with the Born of Osiris situation, I wasn't trying to obviously be Cameron. I wasn't trying to act as if I was somebody in the band. So like I wasn't trying to push myself as the drummer online. I wasn't trying to let a lot of people know that I was doing it online until after the tour was done. That was also per their request, but I think it was something that I would have done anyway. I wasn't going to the meet and greets after the sound check that we would do for the VIP fans, just because I felt like, it's not my band. I don't want anybody to, I don't know, think differently about what's happening. It's just a situation where what happened was he had broken his hand, so he just can't do the tour. He can't play. I'm here to make the shows go on and happen. But yeah, as far as how I was with that band, I would say even more so, do I try to be flexible, and do I try to just go by the rules? And I'm like, hey man, it's your gig, it's your band, you call the shots, like whatever you want me to do, I'm here. And I guess, yeah, I definitely took that to, for lack of a better word, to more of an extreme as far as just subservience. And I don't know if that makes me sound like a bitch. That's not what I mean.
No, I think it makes it sound like you're being respectful and just trying to do a job and get in and out. No, but wait, I have a question.
Yeah, so respectful. Yeah, sure.
My question is, a lot of drummers will post on their socials about anything and everything they're doing. So if you're on a gig where you're filling in for a guy, literally it's still his gig, he broke his hand, his arm, whatever, you're there to do that. It could be any band. Do you post about it on socials, or out of just sort of respect for not confusing fans and whatnot, do you just not post about that particular bit of work you're doing?
Yeah, so it just depends on the situation. With that one in particular, I was posting photos that the tour photographer was taking. I just wasn't saying that I was playing for Born of Osiris. I wasn't telling anybody who I was playing for. A lot of people were asking. Yeah, I just wasn't tagging them. You know, I wasn't hashtagging the name. I wasn't alluding to it. After the tour had finished, I made an announcement and told people that I had been filling in for Born of Osiris that tour, and then I posted a few videos of me playing the music live that I had gotten with some multi-tracking after the show. But yeah, I mean, there was always, I would say, a good emphasis on the fact that I was filling in and that it was not at all something that I was taking over on. Yeah, you know, so it's kind of situational, really. Like a couple of months ago, actually right before this whole COVID stuff started happening, Dragon Force's drummer was unable to do a tour, so they asked me to film a couple videos and send it into them. I ended up not doing the tour because their friend Aquilus Priester ended up doing it for them instead. I think they had toured together before. So after the tour started, Herman was like, yeah, if you want, like, you can, you know, post one of those videos and say that I hit you up, you know, and you didn't do the gig, but, you know, we hit you up anyway. So I put up a video. I was like, hey, I got asked to do the gig. Aquilus is doing it instead, but here's, you know, me playing a little bit of Dragon Force. You know, so always trying to not walk on eggshells, but just be very aware and, like you said, respectful of the band and of, you know, the drummer in that seat.
Yeah, no, I get it. The job that you're doing, the potential for any future work should pretty much supersede the immediate moment of capturing some social media glory, I guess.
Absolutely. And I honestly, as far as social media goes, I like to take that mindset with almost everything I do. Just as far as what you said about that, you know, that instant that little social media glory, I don't really like to cater what I do to that, right? Like I know people that I would say are quote unquote social media whizzes, and they know exactly, you know, what hashtags to put, and they know what kind of content their audience is going to want to look at, you know, and I'll post things and they're like, yeah, man, you know, if you want more likes on your post, or if you're trying to get more followers, like, use these hashtags and keep, you know, putting out like shred clips, dude. Like, that's what people want to see. That's what your fans want to see. That's what grabs attention, is you playing blast beats and you shredding double bass and all this stuff. And honestly, to me, I want to be a lot more candid than that, and I want to put out what I want to put out, you know. And I've noticed, and this sort of goes back to what you were saying earlier about trying not to be pigeonholed to a style and to a genre. You know, maybe throughout the years, yeah, sure, like posting me playing, you know, covering Gavin Harrison music, or, you know, like hip hop artists, and like improvising drums over those kind of tracks. Like, no, it didn't give me a bunch of likes and a bunch of people freaking out of, or, you know, what I was doing in that moment. But over the years, it has sort of shaped my personal fan base into an audience of people that like what I'm gonna do no matter what I do, because they understand that I'm a drummer that embraces versatility. You know, I've like intentionally made it so that you know, if you're the type of person that only wants to see shred clips, you're probably going to unfollow me. And that's fine, because I'm going to get a lot of people that are going to be invested in me as Aaron Stechauner, and not, you know, the drummer of some band or this typecast type of, you know, player.
Yeah. I have a question for you that I was thinking about, because you and I get along really well. We've never really had any beefs about anything that I can think of. And we've always worked well together, and so, but I've never really asked this question of any artist. So what I don't want you to do is candy coat it for me. Okay. You don't have to like base it off of your working relationship with me or with Meinl. It can be kind of an overarching thing. What is it like being an artist and dealing with endorsements? Like from your point of view, from your end of things, how is it to deal with artist relations guys and to deal with haggling over gear and just all that? Like, what's that like for you guys?
To be honest, I feel that.
I mean, dude, I really want you to like give it to me straight. I don't want you to like.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah. And I'm trying to think about how to answer the question as far as like exactly how I feel about it. I mean, to be honest, I don't really have any issues. I'm honestly really fortunate to have the group of people that I work closely with. I would say the people that I talk to and work most with would be Meinl, Tama, Remo, and Vic Firth. And Sam at Tama is amazing. Obviously, you're great. I love having you as an artist relations representative. Ben from Vic is awesome. That's who I talk to. And then I would say Remo, I talk to the least, but whenever I need an order, it's Angie. Roger is like my official AR, but I really only talk to him at NAM. But anyway, they're all great. As far as you said, the whole haggling on gear thing, to be honest, man, and again, it kind of goes back to me trying to just be grateful about what I am given. I don't feel that I almost ever ask for something when it's unprecedented. Like, I won't ask Sam for a kit or for like a snare unless, I just did like a bunch of tours and I have a bunch of things coming up that I feel really have pushed me to the next level since the last time I asked for like a bigger piece of gear, or like I won't ask for a bunch of hardware and things like that, and little pieces of, drum things unless I'm going out on a tour and it's really important. And also I know, hey, like I'm going out on this tour, it's a big tour. A lot of people are going to be, seeing me play your drums. It's like, it's symbiotic, for you to be helping me out because, musicians are advertisements for brands, right? So, yeah, I don't feel that I've really ever been turned down from gear, and I was salty about it. I don't really feel like I've ever had to haggle. Like, everything that I've really needed to, like, fulfill what I needed to get done, I don't think has been turned away. Excuse me. And, yeah, I don't feel that I have any negative feelings towards any of the endorsers that I have, and that's the gospel truth. I'm not sugarcoating anything. I don't have anything to complain about, to be honest.
No, that's cool. I mean, that's a good thing to hear. Is it awkward as like when you get started in those relationships with companies? Is it awkward for you? Do you feel like you sort of have to force yourself to walk up and say hello or to make a call and to be friendly? Is it kind of like yeah, I mean, maybe not. Maybe you're a pretty friendly guy anyway, so it might just come naturally to you. But I imagine some dudes out there, it's almost like a really big deal, like a chore for them to actually have to work up the energy to go up to the guy at the NAMM booth and say hello, or to call him on the phone and update him. And maybe artists like that where for them it's just, instead of being a labor of love, it's just a labor.
I know what you mean. Well, as far as in more recent years, and especially now, I mean, I'm a super extroverted person, and I like to say that I definitely am good at talking to people and starting conversations, whether you're a stranger or not or whatever. I hardly ever feel very awkward or uncomfortable, and that's something that I've definitely grown more into as years go on, of course, just as I've gotten older. So nothing really weird there, and especially now, like if there's a new company that I want to talk to, I've dealt with so many emails and, so many artist representatives and sort of, shooting my shot as far as sending out that email, essentially trying to get either a deal or free stuff from them. I've done that so many times, and I've been turned away and I've been accepted so many times to where I know the deal. I'm not really afraid to walk into that situation. When I was younger, I would definitely say there was a bit of nervousness. I kind of got lucky when I first started out. because like my first real major endorsement was with Tama, and it was when John Fark was still over with them, and I was at the Tama booth, and I walked up to him and I was like, hey, who is the artist representative? And he said, me. And we started talking, and I had just gotten off a tour with another Tama artist, so I just shamelessly name dropped him, and we just got kind of talking. He gave me his card. I sent him my info, and he was down, which I was really shocked and surprised at, because how many people do you meet at NAMM as an artist representative, and how many people ask for endorsements or try to say, hey, I think we should work together,
Right.
So I was I was really taken aback that happened, but yeah, he took me on and I guess really believed in me. But anyways, the point is, after that, he referred me to you, and then you brought me on to Meinl, and then with Vic and with Remo, I think those were email applications, and I think I referenced Tama and Meinl, and then since then, it's been easy, once you have a few endorsements, especially, some of the biggest names in drums as sponsors, it's easier to reach out and say, hey, I'm already endorsed by these guys, do you think that I can get some artist pricing?
Yeah, no, that's cool. Dude, I'm glad it's easy for you, man. I can only imagine for some guys who might be a bit painfully shy, or that's just not in their wheelhouse to approach people they don't know and talk about, like, hey, can I have stuff? And that's got to be painful. Sometimes I try and put myself in their shoes, and I break the ice to make things as easy as possible on them, because that can't be an easy conversation for people to have.
Yeah, for sure. One thing I will be honest about, and not sugarcoat at all, sorry. And I don't know if it's a nervousness thing, but I always dread sending you an email asking for cracked cymbal replacements. And it's not because of anything you did. I just feel bad. Be like, hey man, this product that you gave me, I broke it. Can I have another one, please?
Yeah, no, I mean, I get that. I get it. There's guys that can break stuff like hand over fist, just nonstop, and at that point there's a problem. But you don't do that, so it's no big deal. So Don't sweat it.
Cool.
Now, you did a drum clinic at MI in Hollywood last October, is that right?
Yeah. If you're saying it's October, you said you researched a little bit before this
not
podcast,
October.
so it was probably October.
No, it wasn't October, it was December.
Okay.
Yeah, so you did it. Was that your first drum clinic you ever did?
Actually, yes, it was.
How was that? Was that like, were you nervous as hell, or was it cool?
I don't think I was nervous. It was honestly great. I think a big thing that helps, just kind of goes to what I was saying earlier about the endorsements, just being very extroverted and liking to talk to people. I'm just honestly really fortunate for whatever reason, for whatever reason it is that I have that characteristic, I guess, thanks to probably a lot of like my upbringing and my parents, and I'm also the eldest child, so I feel like that has a lot to do with it. But yeah, anyways, I wasn't really nervous about it, and fortunately I've been teaching lessons for years and years, so that definitely blessed me with the capability of teaching and being able to make a concept make sense to more than just one person. That's a big thing, like with teaching, is that I could teach 5 lessons and have one thing that I'm saying click, and then I try to introduce the same concept to somebody else and it doesn't work, and you have to trial and error how to make the same thing make sense to somebody else, just using different words and using different methods. So yeah, the clinic actually went really great. I feel like I try to just be really witty and make jokes when something like could go wrong, and I feel like in that sense I work well under pressure sometimes. I think actually the best example of this whole thing with that clinic is at the very beginning, I was having a problem with the interface that I was using because I wanted to play back music and have the click in my ears, and I wasn't able to do that because the interface wasn't syncing with my computer. And all these students showed up in the seats, and they were waiting for me to play. And rather than, make them wait for 15 minutes of just like awkward silence on stage while somebody else was going to grab me an interface and I'm rigging up the, system, I just kind of on the fly turned it into a teaching point. And I was like, hey, so see what's happening right now? This has happened to me at shows before where, we have to play and we all, we end up having to cut songs because we have to do this. And I asked anybody like if they were familiar with software, if they were familiar with the DAW that I was using, how many people use interfaces, how many of the students had played with tracks before, and I just kind of turned it into like a teaching point about interface issues and how to troubleshoot and what to do in that kind of situation. And it's like, I don't even know how that came to me, but it ended up being perfect, and I ended up turning like a failure of a situation into something positive. So that made me really stoked on doing clinics, to be honest. I really, really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun from the get-go, and I'm looking forward to doing more.
That's awesome. That's cool that it went so well for you, man. Like a lot of guys, when you ask them, how was your first clinic? Boy, they shake their heads and sort of cringe and say that it was like tough to do, but it sounds like it was really pleasant, actually.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm also, I feel like I'm glad that it was at a place like MI, with a lot of students, because they were more fresh minds, I guess, I might have been a little bit more nervous if it was in front of people that were more like peers, but yeah, no, it went really well overall.
That's awesome. Dude, I got one more question for you. So your band Interloper, that's your main gig. That's your main project, right?
Yes.
So I want you to here's your chance, dude. Shameless self-promotion. I want you to plug it for everybody that's listening out there. Let them know how they can find you guys, where they can buy your music, how they can support.
Right on, man. Yeah, so Interloper, like you said, that is my main project, and it has yet to become my breadwinner project. But yeah, I mean, that's something that I've been working on for years with from the get-go with Miles Dimitri Baker. He's my guitar player. He played in Rings of Saturn for me as well, or with me as well, not for me. Yeah, that band just kind of took a back seat because we were in Rings and we were, still just like, we were so wrapped up in doing Rings of Saturn and very busy with it, and also, still new-ish to the touring scene. But yeah, so since leaving Rings of Saturn, that is a project that we've been working on, and it's been real slow, but I think it's because we've been making sure that we're doing everything right. So we just finished, I may have said earlier in the podcast, we just finished signing to a record label. I'm not going to say who it is yet because this podcast will probably be out before it's announced. But keep a lookout for that because we've got actually 2 releases coming out in less than 12 months of separation. So yeah, we're going to have a bunch of new music. But yeah, we have a YouTube channel. If you look up Interloper on Instagram, I think it's something like Interloper Official Gram. You can find the link in my social pages as well. Obviously, we're on Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff, but we only have a couple songs out right now because, like I said, we have been saving up a lot of music to release through this label. Yeah, so get in before it is cool to like the band. Except I don't know if it'll ever be cool to like the band.
That's awesome. Dude. Man, Aaron, thank you so much for being on the show, man. It's good to catch up, and I love being able to pick your brain and ask you all kinds of questions, and thanks for everything you had to share with everybody. Absolutely, man. Yeah, thanks for having me. I love talking, and I love talking about myself. Just kidding. Kind of kidding. No, but seriously, man, it's great. I love talking to you. I love talking about music and the business, and, I mean, it's my life's passion, so I am never bothered to talk. Right on. Thanks, dude. Absolutely, man. I'll catch you later. Thanks for listening to Meinl Radio. If you liked this episode, please head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We would appreciate it very much. Thanks, and we'll see you soon.